there, welcome to the Greenbrier. I'm Bob Conte. I'm the historian here at the Greenbrier, a job I've been doing since 1978. When I came here to organize the archives for the Greenbrier, which is how I really discovered an amazing history to this place. It goes all the way back to 1778, and the reason we use 1778 as the beginning, that's the first time we could document somebody coming up to the springs to take the waters, as they used to say, drink or bathe in the water to restore their health. So fundamentally, the Greenbrier is a spa, and it still is a spa. You know, we have a major spa operation here amongst all the activities here. So people started coming up for health reasons. We're up in the mountains. We're sitting at 2,000 feet here. So for the first 100 years, we were only open in the summer months. And you were coming up here primarily from the southern states to get away from the heat and humidity. And so what it turned into is a great social resort. You know, this was a famous resort for 30 years before the Civil War. You know, the five sitting presidents visited this resort before the Civil War. So there's a lot of socializing, a lot of matchmaking, a lot of courtship, all that was going on. In the cottages, and some of those cottages are still here. You know, they've been upgraded several times over the years. You know, there are 710 rooms at the Greenbrier altogether, and most of them are in the main hotel, but there are 125 rooms out in these cottages here, which we utilize just like staying in the hotel. So there's this whole 19th century history. When it's a summer resort, it's the Saratoga of the South. It's kind of how people referred to it. Amazingly enough, there wasn't a golf course for the first 100 years. And then the real dividing line in the history here is, and the railroad, right across the street from our main entrance is the railroad, the old Chesapeake and Ohio. And the C&O Railway bought this property in 1910, and essentially they overlaid a new modern resort over what was already here. So they built the Greenbrier in 1913. They had a wonderful indoor swimming pool. We're still using it today, built in 1912. And we opened the Old White Golf Course. I'm standing right next to number 1 of Old White here. That opens in 1914. So they really kind of plug in the country club component. And once the railroad owns it, then they start promoting it much more up into the Northeast. You know, as I often say, Joseph and Rose Kennedy, President Kennedy's parents, honeymooned here in 1914. Well, they just got on a train in Boston and got off right across the street. And certainly that brought a lot of New Yorkers here. In fact, the Greenbrier was managed by the same guy who managed the Plaza Hotel in New York back when it first opened. And then the other way, trains are going up to Chicago and Detroit, which meant connections in St. Louis and Indianapolis, Cincinnati. So it really becomes much more of a, not exactly a national resort, certainly a northeastern and midwestern resort. And then the railroad owns it for 99 years. They buy it in 1910, as I say, and then they sell it in 2009 to our current owner, Jim Justice. But there was an exception of that 99 years when this was an army hospital. So in the Second World War, the Greenbrier was actually owned by the government. It had a different name. It was called Ashford General Hospital, and pretty close to 25,000 soldiers in 4 years came to this property. They did surgery here, but they also utilized golf and tennis and the indoor pool and the spa and the hiking trails. All this is part of reconditioning. So it gets heavily used in those 4 years, and when the war's over, the Army didn't need the hospital anymore. They sell it back to the railroad. And that's when it all gets redecorated by Dorothy Draper. So one of the great characteristics of the Greenbrier is this interior decor, the very bright decor, lots of flowers and stripes and black and white floors. That was installed here back in the late 40s. Dorothy Draper was a big-time famous New York decorator, and it's 70 years later, yeah, we're still decorated by the Dorothy Draper Company. Now, she's dead, but her successor is Carlton Barney. So, and once it reopens after the war, you know, Richard Nixon is vacationing here, and President Eisenhower hosts a conference here, and the Duke and Duchess of Windsor here are coming on a regular basis, and Princess Grace and Prince Rainier vacation here. So it's a very cosmopolitan resort, and that's when the government comes back with this whole idea of building a bunker at the Greenbrier. Boy, when that secret mission was, in case of emergency, the whole Greenbrier would turn over to the government, and this would be where Congress reassembled and continued to be the the legislative branch of the federal government. So all that closed down once the Cold War ended back in the 1990s, and as I say, it's a major attraction here today. Thousands of people come through here to see the bunker. I guess the biggest story after that is the sale, you know. So the railroad across the street, which is now the CSX Corporation, once we got into the Great Recession, they were spinning off all their non-rail assets. And the man who saved the Greenbrier, the man named Jim Justice, who was sort of a local guy made good, grew up down the road about 50 miles in Beckley, West Virginia, made a fortune. His family fortune goes back to the coal industry, and he's diversified into all sorts of things. He's also the governor of West Virginia nowadays, but that's a more recent thing. So 10 years ago, Mr. Justice bought the property. And so here's somebody who's been coming here for years. We had done very well in the coal industry. And he's very much revitalized the property. Probably the single biggest project is building a casino. Dug a giant hole in front of the hotel, a 100,000 square foot casino, with more shops and restaurants down there too. Brought in the PGA Tour FedEx Cup Series tournament. As I say, I'm sitting next to #1 of Old White, and that's where they play it. This will be the 9th year that tournament's been played here. Built a new tennis center. You know, people have been playing tennis here, well, since 1915. So we have indoor and outdoor, and now we have this nice stadium, the 2,500 seat stadium. So tennis has been a mainstay here for years and years. In fact, they built a facility for NFL teams to do their summer camps here, the New Orleans Saints, the Houston Texans. So people come and do the traditional activities. The casino is something new. We have off-road driving. Remember, this is 11,000 acres of land, so people go riding off in the mountains here. We have a major gun club here. People like to do sporting clays. We have that, regular old skeet and trap shooting. You know, I think we say there are 55 activities here. I'm not sure I can name them all. Indoor pool, outdoor pool. And my impression when I meet people, they're sort of overwhelmed with the size of the place and the number of activities. So we can't get it all done in a 3-day visit. So you just have to come back. So to know all that, you have to come here the first time too, and come on a tour. That's one of the things I do, because we think history is a very important part. This is one of the things that separates us. There are lots of very nice resorts out there, but not many of them can claim to be luxury resorts and 200 years of history at the same time.